Thank you for participating in this lesson on trade routes. It could also be called 10 Ways to Screw Up Others' Businesses. I'll teach you how to massively increase your trade volume. Now, select your convoy, which is anchored off Cartagena, and select the Trade Route tab. As long as you only have a convoy, you can of course act on your own, buying, transporting, selling commodities. But with more convoys, it gets out of hand. You have to learn to give orders to your convoys so that they are sailing for you automatically. For that, you need the trade routes. Now, click on the Trade Routes button to open the dialog, and then select Create New Route. Here, you create new trade routes and assign them to your convoys. A new route does not yet contain any towns, so you will have to edit it first. This is the navigation map. It shows you wind direction and wind force everywhere. With tailwind, a convoy will naturally drive much faster, and time is money. The red areas are sometimes hit by storms. This increases the risk that your convoy will be damaged. That's what areas with a dull wind look like. Here, convoys move very slowly. Therefore, such areas are usually avoided. The colored areas near coasts indicate shallow waters and reefs. Convoys with greater draft have to be very careful here, and therefore do not make rapid progress. Now look up to the left. There you will see the towns where you have acquired a trading license. You will also see what each town is producing at the moment. Set up a trade route with these 4 towns. Simply select the towns in this order: Cartagena, Portobello, Bluefields, Puerto Cabezas. As you can see, all the towns will appear in the list, and even the exact course of the route will be shown. However, this route is not very convenient. The convoy would have to sail frequently against the wind, and would make only slow progress. The first thing you should do is to change the order of the towns. To change the position of a town in the list, you can select and move it. You see, the course of the route is already much more consistent with the wind directions. But you can optimize the route even more because it runs through an area with little wind. Select the route at the marked position and move it up to the other marker outside the calm. And see how this reduces the duration of the trip. You can certainly improve the route in other places to take better account of the wind, avoid potential storms, or avoid shallow water and cliffs. Feel free to experiment. Then select the town of Cartagena in the list to set the commands for that town. Of course, your people need to know what to buy, what to sell, and what to keep their hands off. So you give them guidelines, which they then follow. Don't worry, it sounds more complicated than it is. The commodities produced in a town are often in abundance. That makes them cheap, and you can sell them in other towns at a profit. Search for cotton and give the order to buy. Your people will then buy cotton as long as it can be sold on the route and the purchase price is low enough. But your people are not stupid. If there are no sell orders for a commodity, if there is no demand, or if the purchase price is too high, they will not buy it. If you actually have to deliver a commodity somewhere, even though it is very scarce and expensive, you can deactivate this automatic pricing and give your people a maximum purchase price. But find 2 more commodities in Cartagena that you want to buy, and switch to the town Puerto Cabezas when you are ready. Puerto Cabezas can certainly use the commodities you want your people to buy in Cartagena. So set these commodities to sell. By the way, if you select a commodity, the list of towns will show you where it is bought or sold. Of course, you can also set further preferences for priority, quantity, and price when selling, but it is not important at first. If you want to know what this is for at a later time, just have a look at my tips and tricks. So, an easy route is now available. If you want, you can of course make further settings for the other towns. Feel free to have a look around. When you're ready, close the edit mode for the route again. You will now be shown all kinds of information about the route, but since the route is new, most of the values are 0, and as long as no convoy uses this route, nothing will change. You should therefore assign it to your selected convoy. And now you only have to give your convoy the command to follow the route. Very good. If you now close the route dialog, you can see how your convoy sets sail and executes your commands. In the port of Cartagena, there are now 2 more convoys ready for you. Up here, you can see how many of your convoys are not on a trade route right now. You can select such a convoy either directly in the world or by switching through. Please switch to a free convoy now. Now send this convoy to the route you just created. Open the route mode again. And now select again the option Assign Route and activate the route on the convoy. Great! You see, a route can have several convoys. This is especially useful if the route is very long or a lot of commodities have to be transported. Your current route is short, and the quantities still small, but that can change once the towns start growing. You can, of course, change, extend, and optimize a route at any time. The affected convoys will implement these changes immediately. Finally, one more thing. The trade route dialog shows you the data of your different routes. You can also view the balances of individual convoys. Close the trade route dialog now and take a look at convoys and towns. Among other things, all your convoys and vessels are displayed here. You can also view the balances of your convoys, which are currently on tour with a trade route. So you can quickly see if a convoy is currently making gains or losses. This lesson is now also completed. You have now learned the most important things about trade routes. By the way, if you later have your own warehouses in towns, they can also be used and filled by trade routes. More Welcome to the course about production and why producing by yourself is better than buying from others. And while you're at it, I can also hammer some more insights about the Caribbean economy home. You already know that you can earn a lot of money by buying commodities here cheaply and selling them expensive elsewhere. Now, it can happen that you could sell more commodities than are offered. For example, because the production is too weak or there are too many merchants underway, then it is worth considering getting into production yourself. Sure, during production there are costs for buildings, raw materials, and workers. But if everything runs normally, you produce the commodities at a reasonable price, and you can sell them for a profit wherever they are needed. With optimizations, you can reduce your unit costs even more, and thus increase your profits. For this course, Cartagena is your hometown. Open the town dialog. Here you can see which commodities can be produced with which efficiency by cultivation or mining. Of course, you can produce handicrafts everywhere because they depend on raw materials and not on geographical specifics. Here you can see which commodities are actually produced in the town. Each town can produce up to 7 different products. Your businesses will also be displayed here later. These numbers tell you how many commodities in the town are produced per day and how much could be produced. If, for example, workers or raw materials are missing, this slows down the production. You should only produce the commodities that are scarce in the area, because the production of commodities is really expensive, and if you create an oversupply, the prices go down and you make losses. That also applies to other producers in the town. If they make losses with their commodities, they shut down production or even tear down their businesses. I'm only telling you this in case you ever have plans like that. Check which commodities are in demand here. Vegetables are such a commodity, and Cartagena does not produce vegetables at the moment, but could. Vegetables are also scarce in the neighboring towns. You will quickly realize that when you trade. And since vegetables are high on the list, they have a big meaning for smaller towns. So, vegetable cultivation seems to be a good idea. Close this dialog now and open the construction menu for this. In the first section of buildings you can construct are town buildings like residentials or chapels, but we'll get to that in the next lesson. You can find production businesses in the second section. The darkened businesses can't be built here. The conditions for that are missing. If you move the camera to the town of Necoclí south of Cartagena, you can see how the possible businesses change. Of course, you can't just build anything anywhere. First of all, you need a trade permit, so that you can trade and your fame increases. Only then you can get a building permission for businesses. If you even want to construct town buildings, you have to get the town administration rights from the viceroy. Now take a look at Cartagena to see the possible building sites for vegetable cultivation. Select the business and zoom in close to the town until building sites in different colors become visible. The plots are divided into two colors, rather negative and neutral. Gray fields mean disadvantages. Move the focus to such a field. You can see that the operation would have a negative effect on the satisfaction of the residents in several residential areas. There are no negative factors on the neutral fields. There you should now build a vegetable farm. Good. The construction contract is given. Here you can see which construction materials are needed and how much these materials and the construction costs. You don't have to worry about the construction workers, but they can only start working when the construction commodities are in stock in the town. You can help with this, if necessary. Close the construction menu again and move the focus to the business you just commissioned. In the info area, you can see who owns the building and if there are any commodities missing for construction. If so, you can either get them and sell them to the town, or you can wait until another merchant did. Without workers, nothing works, of course. Otherwise, you would have to harvest the carrots yourself. Open the town dialogue by selecting an empty field or a town building. Here you can see how many job seekers there are in the town currently. They come with the treasure fleets from Europe to the town of the Viceroy, and from there they are distributed via trade convoys to the other towns. You can help with a trick here. When you dismiss the sailors, they automatically become job seekers. In order for job seekers to come to the town and stay until they find a job, the satisfaction in the town must be at least 40%. This is usually not a problem, but as towns get bigger, the demands of their inhabitants grow. But workers also need housing for themselves and their families. If there is not enough of it in the town, your business cannot hire new employees. If you really are the administrator of a town, as it is the case with your hometown, nobody else builds buildings but you. So you have to provide enough housing. On the contrary, if you are not the administrator, you have to wait until the town does it. If the town is doing well and there are enough building materials, it won't take long. Let's speed things up a bit. Your farm is now operational and has all the workers. Now, switch to the Production tab and select Vegetables. Here you can see the vegetable production of the town. Your businesses are also a part of it, and from tomorrow on, you can see which commodities your new business produces daily. As long as you don't have your own warehouse in the town, the produced vegetables will be sold to the town daily at the current price. As long as your business is running efficiently and the town is not drowning in an oversupply of vegetables, there is nothing wrong with that. Of course, you can prevent oversupply by selling the commodities to other towns yourself. For example, by using trade routes. If the neighbors drown in vegetables, you can also stop your production completely for a while to prevent the price drop of the commodities. Vegetables are cultivated. Other commodities, such as iron or coal, are mined. And there are handicraft businesses where raw materials are converted, such as weaving mills. Here, cotton is spun and woven into cloth. Such a weaving mill is needed right now in Cartagena. Get to work! Very good. Let's speed this up. Now leave the construction menu and select the weaving mill to see its production. Here you can see what raw materials you need for your cloth production. As long as you don't have a warehouse in the town where the commodities are in stock, the business automatically buys the required cotton from the town as needed and sells the produced cloth back to the town. And the lesson on the basics of production is already over. Now you know why you should only produce commodities that are in demand. Also, you should always make sure that your businesses have enough raw materials, because otherwise you will pay your workers to just sit around. You have already learned how to boost production in the towns, but in towns like your hometown, which you manage yourself, you also have control over the living conditions and can also optimize the production of your businesses. Open the construction menu. Directly in the first category, you will find all buildings that do not produce commodities. They create living space, increase the satisfaction of the inhabitants, or attract more workers to the town. Move the cursor over the buildings and see the information about them. As you can see, many buildings have positive effects on other buildings or even the whole town. The most important building, besides the businesses, is of course the residential area. Select it because you should build one. A residential area can accommodate a lot of people. This is good because most workers have families, children, partners, old people, etc. Only about every fourth inhabitant works at all. So we need 4 times as much living space as workers. Otherwise, no new people will come to the town. If you look at the possible building sites for residential areas in Port Royal, you will see different colors. These indicate whether there are advantages or disadvantages for the building site. This coloring means that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. Move the cursor over one of these fields to see what the advantages are and where they come from. Here the reasons are the tavern and the chapel. If they are nearby, the popularity of a residential area increases and it can grow much bigger. But nobody likes to live near cultivation or mining companies. There is too much hustle and bustle. Sometimes there is also noise and stench. So the satisfaction of the residents decreases, and such negative influences even add up. Find a good place for a residential area and commission it. The situation is different with handicraft businesses. Here, residential areas have a positive effect because the workers have a short way to work. But also companies that supply the right raw material for the craft have a positive effect. Choose the brewery for once. The most productive building sites for a brewery are located near residential areas and grain farms, because the workers then have a short distance to work and grain is needed for brewing. Now build a brewery. Very good. By the way, If a crafting business needs more than one resource, it will receive an additional bonus for each resource business nearby. And another building has a positive effect on production. The tool maker. Select it. With the tool maker, you can make nearby mining operations like the coal mine more efficient. I think you've understood the principle. Just always take a close look at the advantages and disadvantages of such a building site. That's what. And as always, one last thing. For many handicraft businesses like the brewery and special town buildings like the tool maker, you need a concession. You can get this from your viceroy when you have enough fame. We will talk about this in the next lesson.